Hello. Welcome to Truth Hunting. We're going to talk about all kinds of really cool stuff. My name's Chris. Fractal Chris. That's where I make NFTs. And I also run Podcast Engineering School. I teach people how to produce podcasts. James?
Hi, my name is just James. That's all it is. And no fancy, no fancy beginning or end, just James. So I'm a therapist extraordinaire. So if you need help changing your limiting beliefs, I'm your guy.
Matt?
All right. Yeah, I'm Matt. I own a gym, and I cut grass, and I do lots of other stuff too. You can find me at strengthinourfitness.locals.com. Check it out. Get the work out of your life. Get a lot of positive motivation that comes across as very negative and non-heartwarming.
There you go. All right, all the links will be below in the description, and we're going to start today talking about quantum physics. This is a topic, so if you're watching this and you're like, quantum physics, what the heck does that have to do with anything?
I'll be back in 10 minutes. See you later.
Don't worry. My expertise will be exhausted shortly.
Yeah, but quantum physics, I mean, there's so much to it. We're going to talk about a few cool things about it, but it's really fascinating, and it really makes you think about a lot of things. Like, and look, our first two shows, this is our third show ever, and so our first two shows, we talked a bunch about politics and social issues and that stuff. And part of the problem in those discussions about politics and social stuff is not many people who are talking about it actually think deeply about things, right? It's all just on the surface. It's all superficial. So anyway, quantum physics is one of these topics where we can actually think a little deeper and maybe learn something and then apply it to our lives if possible, or just be enriched. Right, Matt?
100%, yeah. Well, here's a question that the two quantum physics experts can help me understand, right? Something I've always wondered, and hopefully your expertise can maybe lend some light here. Because I did a lot of science, and I have a decent background, at least in basic science, like big stuff, not quantum stuff. But an atom, right, that's our basic structure, an atom. I believe it's 99.9% atoms empty space, correct? Is that an accurate statement?
Or more. Yeah, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's virtually completely empty. Yet we're made of atoms, and we have a certain size and density. So the one thing I've always wondered, are we actually 99.99% times bigger than we actually are? And this is the condensed version of our essence, what we see as a person? Or how does that actually work? Go.
I would just say we're just a cluster of cells and atoms and molecules and cells, and then when you go up from cells, you get what? Organs, and then limbs, and then it's the human body. So I think we're just clusters of atoms. But I believe it's true that we literally are not more than 99.9% just empty space.
That would explain certain political attitudes, I guess.
The airheads? You're talking about airheads? Well, James, you wrote, and so we have this little notes, we have this little document that we sort of prepare notes in, and James, you talked about this book, The Field by Lynn McTaggart, which is one that I think I own it, but that's one that I never read, actually, so.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really good primer, at least it was for me, on quantum physics. It's just great place to start, and probably you need to read it like 3 or 4 times before you get it all, because a lot of it went over my head. But the big points I got from it is that it really just changes everything. It changes the way you look at everything. Quantum physics, basically everything's connected, and a lot of spiritual gurus have thought that for thousands of years. Everything is connected. Well, now we've got the science that actually shows everything is connected. And, the example that she uses in there is, and she goes through lots of different studies and all the scientists that have been pigeonholed when they first started studying this, kind of like the Earth is flat people versus the Earth is round people, until that was settled. At least it used to be settled. And she used the example of when you cook a piece of bread in the toaster, that you're moving electrons and you're affecting things on the other side of the galaxy. I mean, everything is bouncing off everything. The chair you're sitting on, the molecules are bouncing off the carpet, off the wall, off the tree outside. Everything is in constant motion all the time at a molecular level. So everything is absolutely connected. So you can see why you feel certain people's energy when you come in the room, because your field is bouncing off theirs. And they've already proven that there's about an 8-foot diameter energy field coming out from your heart that surrounds you. So when you come into contact with somebody else, you're definitely feeling each other's energy field, whether it's uplifting or downlifting, whatever. We're all bouncing off each other, literally. But it really just blows your mind how connected everything is. And a couple of studies, very interesting. I'll make it quick. So through these studies, they found that we can affect, with our thoughts, we can affect other things. So an example was, and it's not just us, they did a study where they had a little robot and all these, and they had all these chicks, like chickens, were born, and of course they bond with whatever they see, right? They bond with whatever they see in their field of view immediately. So they bonded with this robot, and they would follow it around everywhere it went inside their little area that they had the chicks in. So they put the robot outside of the chicks, and the chicks would, kind of stay with it. And the robot had a random number generator in where it sent the robot. Okay, so it just sent it around in random directions. And they proved that the chicks were able to influence the path of the robot. They proved that since it was a random directions that it went. It was called a reg number generator, using radioactive decay. They proved that the robot went towards the chicks more than it would if it was random. So
that's cool.
Everything we can influence so much. We have no idea. We don't know anything. After reading this book, we don't know anything. We know nothing.
So a non-cognitive item was influenced by living creatures. A non-living item was influenced by that's whack.
Absolutely. And yes, they've proven this over and over and over again. So when the old adage of, there's a gremlin in the machine or something, and like if you come into the corporate office, you've heard the stories of everything kind of goes haywire on Mondays. Mm-hmm. At a corporate, maybe computers crash or whatever, something happens. Yeah, that's the human influence on those machines. They've proven it. It does happen.
I've experienced that so much in my life with certain individuals when I try to teach them something about a computer. And of course, my mom is one of them, obviously, but there's another.
Everybody's mom.
Yeah.
Everybody's mom.
But there's another woman I worked with, and I'm telling you, anything that woman tried to do on a computer, it's like nothing worked and everything would crash and it wouldn't. I'd be like, okay, just restart it. And then even restarting had a problem. And I'm like, there was something going on there. It was like a consciousness thing. And I think the points you make, James, are really good. And one of the things that frustrates me about science is that science only really believes what it can prove right now. And they don't even entertain other ideas because they're like, oh, that's stupid. You can't prove that. And it's like, well, no, even though I can't prove it, doesn't mean it's not true, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like normalcy bias. Anything outside of our proven thoughts and
experience
theories. It's no, we can't do that. It's like, and it gets political when you're getting government funding or university funding. Then it just turns into a political nonsense. Like right now, every university is getting funded for global warming, this and that. And if you say, hey, I'm not buying this, and they cut your funding. So that's the main problem.
Right. Yeah, terrible. And even today, I just read a tweet by Styx Hexenhammer 666, right? He makes videos every day. We really like him. I know you and I do, Matt. I don't know, James, if you know Styx, but
haven't heard him. Nope.
He tweeted something like, "Oh, people who said they've had near-death experiences are, logically by de facto they didn't die because if they remember anything, then they weren't dead." And anyway, his tweet was really focusing on the connection, really just focused on the brain. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I know in my heart and a lot of other people know is that the brain is just like a physical switching station it's an interface to our physical body. But consciousness is an entirely different thing, which human beings know nothing hardly about. And so like if you try to talk consciousness with any scientific person at all, they can't talk about it and they won't talk about it. But yet you can prove 100 different ways of things that happen in people's consciousness that you can't prove with science. And so I responded to Styx's tweet. I was like, yeah, I said, we love your show, but you seem to be focused on the brain. Consciousness is something way bigger and science knows nothing about it. And he didn't respond because he's, he probably gets a million tweets a day, but the brain and consciousness thing, that's the conversation I want to have with some of these narrow-minded scientists, because there's so much more there. And when these scientists pretend that they know stuff, they make fools of themselves. They're just idiots. They're an idiot. Yeah,
but they have that PhD, so they get that instant credibility, whether they deserve it or not.
Right.
Yeah. You start talking about there's the conscious, the subconscious, and then the superconscious, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Yeah.
But we have access to all that. All of us have access to that. I mean, that's how the 100th monkey effect comes about. It's consciousness. It's collective consciousness. It's a real thing.
Explain that 100th monkey. What is that?
Okay. Is that explaining you, or is that explaining for the audience?
I think I know what it is. But
okay. So basically, I think it was a couple islands off Japan somewhere, and there were these monkeys, and these scientists gave them sweet potatoes. I don't know why they gave them sweet potatoes, but they did. And the monkeys figured out how to take them into the surf and wash them off, and then started eating them. And so there was a learning taking place, and there was other monkeys. I can't remember how far. It was another island, not connected at all. They started doing the exact same thing within short order, and it took I think somewhere upwards of like 100 monkeys. They were watching each other. They were watching each other do it. And then, each one of them started picking up the sweet potato and doing the same thing, same actions with it. And in short order, monkeys on this other island, I don't know how far away, they did the same thing. So there's a collective consciousness for the monkeys.
Right. So the consciousness of the monkeys on one island somehow connected to the consciousness of the monkeys on another island,
Yep.
And yeah, so I was right. I was correct about where you were going with that, because I think there's a guy named Rupert Sheldrake, and they're called morphogenic fields or morphogenic fields. And he studied this, and he has a lot of examples of this. And that, come on, man, how fascinating is that? Are you kidding?
Oh, yeah, I could go on with near-death experiences too, because it was covering that in the book I'm reading right now. But we don't know anything, and we have so much power as human beings. If we access that quantum field, it's just, we have no idea.
Yeah,
it's limitless. It really is.
Hey, Matt, did I explain the two-hole experiment last episode? Right? I think I did.
No, I don't think you did last episode. No.
Or the first one? Didn't I do it? I did it somewhere.
Were you talking about the two-hole experiment that you talked about on live, or the one when we were, behind the scenes with the different two holes at the bus station? Which experiment were you talking about?
Oh no, the one. So the quantum physics book that I love the most it's called "In Search of Schrödinger's Cat," and the two-hole experiment explains quantum physics and the link to consciousness. That's why I wanted to bring it up right now. So, all right, I'll just tell it real quick. It's not that difficult. So, if you, we all know that light is made of photons, right? Like a stream of photons. So these physicists, and this is back in the 1920s, 1930s? Something
Was it that long ago? Yeah.
This was early quantum physics. And they, Schrödinger, that's when he was around, all those guys. The guys who created quantum physics, really. So if what happened was they would take picture, you take a sheet of paper and you just put two holes in it. And then you fire one photon, or let's just say you shine a light on the paper and the light goes through the two holes, and on the other side of the paper there's a screen, and you could see the pattern that ends up on the screen. And of course, if you shined a light and it went through two holes, you would just see two lights, two sections of light on the backdrop, right? But what happens is when you don't just shine a light, you start shooting one photon at a time. Well, if you shoot one photon, it can only go through one of the holes, right? So then it would hit on the back screen, either on the one area or the other area, because it can go through either hole. And so when the researchers were not they put a little a sensor on one of the holes. Like, let's just say the right hole. They put a little sensor so they could tell if a photon went through there. So now when they shoot the photon, if it goes through the left, it just goes through. If it goes through the right, their little sensor goes beep. They know it went through the right. So when he just shot one photon at a time over and over, someone through right, someone through left, but they had a sensor on it, and on the backdrop, the photons hit the backdrop in two little clusters, just like if you shined a light. But what happened was when you take away that sensor on one of the holes, and then you keep shooting photons, on the backdrop, there's a pattern that emerges. It's a wave pattern. Okay. Whereas if you have the sensor there and the photons go, it looks like it acts like particles went through the holes. So if you observe light, it's a particle. If you don't observe it, it becomes a wave. And it's based on your consciousness, the scientist's consciousness of observing it. And that no one still knows what that means or how that happens.
Yet it's a foundational aspect of life that affects all of us every day, right? That's the wacky thing. We don't get it in the slightest, but we have light right now. Photons are all over the place, but we have no idea.
You don't have light, but we have light.
There's no sun where I am. It's underground. Sometimes known as hell. Yeah.
Matt lives in the zero hole experiment.
Correct.
Well, you got those solar cells blocking the windows, so.
That's just the story. I'm just in a cave.
And the grow lights are in another room.
That's what that blue tent is, the grow lights. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. In New
Is
Jersey.
it legal?
Yeah. Oh, oof.
Yeah, well, it's they're trying to bring it legal. It should be coming online pretty soon. There's a big giant. There's a Walmart in the town, a couple towns over, closed down. They turned it to a distribution plant where they make the medical versions of it, and it's a lot of people in the town are not that happy because it has a certain aroma when you drive down the highway. Like, oh yeah, here I am.
Oh
it's weird. There's always a skunk killed right around here. It's so strange. It's amazing.
Jeez. Why was I late to work? I just pulled over and zoned out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Cheech and Chong style. So, James, the other book you had here is The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, which I read, which I thought was fascinating.
Did you?
And then I looked at some of the reviews of the book, and people were like, oh, that book is complete BS, and the whole thing with, who was the Indian guy? The Indian guru who did the magic?
I'm halfway through it, so I haven't finished it.
What's his name? Anyway, he's a famous Indian guru, and okay, so I'm gonna figure out the name. But what? So you're halfway through the book. What do you think about it so far?
Oh, it's it covers a little bit of what the field covered about the reg experiments with the random number generator, but covered some near-death experiences. Oh, I was talking about these mystics, this starts with a J. They were in France, 14th, 15th century, and they've got tons of documentation on this. But these people could endure unbelievable amounts of torture. And they did it on purpose. I mean, it was a demonstration of their faith. And this one example was this one woman or girl that could arch her back over like a spike, and they would drop, and I'm not kidding here, they would drop a 50-pound stone from a pretty high distance. It said great height. I don't know what that meant. From a great height, and drop it on her. And it wouldn't affect her, wouldn't hurt her. No injuries, nothing. No marks, nothing. And that was just one example. There was tons of examples. There's volumes and volumes and volumes of all the experiments they did with these people, and they all survived without injury. Just crazy things like that. So just talking about the power of the mind. Right. Just amazing.
The Indian guru I was thinking of is Sai Baba. And so there was an original Sai Baba who I think died, I think it was in the 30s or 40s. Oh no, he died in October of 1918. That was the original Sai Baba. His name was Sai Baba, and he supposedly he was a spiritual master, and he could manifest things. Like he can manifest, I forget what he manifested. I think it was, actually, I don't know. But anyway, he died in 1918, and then he had a successor who was also named Sai Baba. He just took the name Sai Baba. And this guy who must have died by now, but he was around, I think in the 50s and 60s, maybe 70s, and he would just manifest like gold bracelets and stuff, or just take stuff out of his mouth. And I think people have taken some video of that, and it's sort of been debunked. I mean, it kind of looks a little fishy, a little funny, but I don't know. Of course, I don't know, but I think in the Holographic Universe, the book we're kind of talking about, some of these people who were critical of that book said that, oh yeah, Sai Baba was just a complete fake, and the author Michael Talbot, he sort of took it all seriously, and that kind of, dampened the whole point of the book to some people. But anyway, I read it. I loved it. Matt, did you read that one?
No.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. It's a famous one. I read it a long time ago. I don't remember really any specifics.
Yeah, it's been out a long time. It's been out like since the early 90s, I think, something like that.
So Matt, I have a question. What do you think if people read funny books like this? Like, let's just say the couple books we mentioned they are what they are, whether they're true or not. Do you think it's good for people to read stuff and open their mind, even though some of it might be either exaggerated or maybe not 100% true?
Sure, 100%. I've always thought of reading as the same as exercise for the brain, for the mind. It keeps actually your neurons firing. So I think it keeps your brain healthy. Reading anything, comics to quantum physics, whatever the case, reading, activating those neural pathways, I think is important to build mental strength and keep mental acuity. It also provides a fertile environment for, random thoughts, for like free thinking, right? Like when you read stuff, even though you don't think it affects you, it may impact part of you. And then a day later, or going to sleep the next day, have a dream, whatever, it could have an impact on you, whether it's something a direct impact or an indirect impact. So yeah, reading a variety of things is thoroughly important. It's like eating a variety of foods. If you just ate carrots all day, sure, you might have good vision for about 2 weeks before you start crapping orange and peeing. Looks like battery acid, and then you die from malnutrition because all you did is
like that one guy.
Yeah,
there was that one guy that like turned orange and croaked, I think, because he ate
it's not
carrots all the time.
Yeah, So yeah, I think reading everything is great. I've read tons of books. I don't read so much now. I just research things. So I'll pick a topic, whatever has an interest, and I'll just do tons of reading on that topic. So it's not necessarily book reading, but it's topic based, and it's always changing. So it's again, does it make a difference from reading a book to doing research or reading other? No, I don't think it makes a difference. If you're engaging your mind, I think it's super good, whatever the case is.
Right. And I have another question. We're talking about consciousness and quantum physics and all these things. And okay, so you lift a lot of weights, you own a gym, you have your locals group, which, by the way, if you want daily workouts and stuff, what are they, short little mini workouts every day?
No, they're full, like 45-minute workouts that just beat the piss out of you. Yep.
Oh, no, all right. So if you want to get the beat out of you, the link is below to Matt, the strengthandhonorfitness.locals.com. But in all your years of lifting, speaking of consciousness, I'm sure some days you go to the gym, you feel weak. Some days you feel strong. Other times you have certain thoughts and they affect you. Like, have you had any observations about how your consciousness affects your actual physical strength or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Years ago, I actually created a chart and gave it to a gal I was dating. So I'm sure that's been probably burned at this point. But it was a very interesting chart, and it was a line graph showing the importance of like in term fitness, working out, weightlifting. Put it all in the same category. Let's say if you want to make progress in either one, it measured the impact that the importance of mental aspect versus the physical aspect, and how over the career and time of if you measure your success from being a beginner to being very successful, whatever the endeavor is, how initially it's physical and then it becomes mental and then it goes back to actually being physical again, right? Because the folks who say it's just mental, that's almost like, okay, you've reached 3/4 of leveling to the highest level, but that's it. Beyond that, it actually, in my experiences, reverts back to physical. Because when you're good, and you take any sport, right, or any endeavor, if you will, once you understand what you're doing and have a good grasp of how to be successful at what you're doing, and if you're good at it, you develop the mental skills, requirements, and strategies to be great. So in terms of, say, contact sports, right, you know how to, in the beginning, you're either intense all the time, or you need to get slapped around, or you need to have some sort of stimulant to get you to the point of high level intensity to be good, whether it's football, karate, wrestling, powerlifting, whatever the case is. After a while, you know how to dial that up kind of right away. it doesn't really take, you don't need any external stimuli. You know how to turn it on instantaneously because you've been doing it for so long. And if you're good at it, right? If again, this is all sort of with the idea that you're successful at what you do. But once you reach that point of mental, I guess, success, it then goes, it sort of turns back into making sure all the physical parameters are lined up. Because at least in my experiences, I know quite a few high level people in terms of different sports and such that at the highest levels, there's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many things that need to be lined up just right. Just like imagine you're building a skyscraper. You're from floors 1 through 99, you have to make sure all the rafters and girders are lined up. You can't have anything off because if you do, there's so much pressure at the top that it'll collapse. The same as with any high level endeavor in terms of sports. I'm sure even if it's law school or academics, anything at that high level, there's so much room for error and there's so many things that could go wrong that you have to be really hyper sort of focused or hyper cognizant. And so a lot of that, if your mental game's in check, it goes back to the physical game. You have to make sure your nutrition is good. For instance, if you're talking about physical stuff, right? Nutrition is on point. Your hydration's on point. Your body's recovered. Your muscles are recovered. You've gotten plenty of rest. So there's a lot of things that go into it that are beyond the mental part. So yeah, initially it's physical, then it goes to mental. But if that's where you think it ends, then that's fine. Most people are happy with that, right?
It's funny you mentioned that it starts physical, then mental, then back to physical. And it reminded me of a sales trainer that I took a course from. And he said in the beginning, when people start learning how to do sales, they end up going out in the world and they initially have like success, like because they don't know what they're doing. And they're just like talking to people. They're being normal. So they have success. Then after they start thinking about it more, then or they start trying more, they actually start to do worse. And then you have to go through a whole learning curve of trying to not try so hard. And then on the other side is when you become a mature salesperson and then you don't try so hard, but you know all the muscle memory of all the fundamentals is you've already gained that. So then when you're a pro, it's like you're a beginner, but you're not. You're way better than a beginner, but you're not trying as hard. So I thought that was interesting.
I think that's the difference between being conscious and unconscious. So if you're in the conscious mind, you're overthinking things, or you can overthink things, especially if you're a sales guy. And at a certain point, whether it's weightlifting, sales, athlete, whatever, it becomes unconscious. You don't even think about it. You just do. And the more you think about it, the worse your performance gets. That's like Michael Jordan in the days being in the zone. Like when he was, I think when he scored like 60 points or something like that one night, he had the flu, he was sick.
Yeah.
And, how do you, at least for me, how do you feel, what, for me, when I'm sick, sometimes I'll feel zoned out, right? If you've ever felt that way, where you just kind of, nothing bothers you. You don't care about anything. You're not worrying about your work or bills or anything. You're just kind of zoned out, and it feels kind of nice, actually, besides being sick. So he was zoned out, which kind of tuned out his conscious mind. I'm speculating here. And he just went nuts. So it's conscious versus unconscious thinking.
100%. Every good, anyone who's successful at whatever the skill set is, any required skill that takes learning, the good ones, it's all automatic for the most part, right?
Right. The mastery of it becomes automatic.
Right. Once you get the most successful ones, there is no conscious effort. In fact, oftentimes they're either, getting sick almost puts you in a sort of meditative state where you release your stress, right? Because you're like, I don't care. So you're forced to be, there's no real pressure. I feel sick. So, if I play a game, I'm just happy to be here. I don't really have any expectations. There's no pressure to be an all-star, right? There's no pressure to do great things. So you've reached this sort of peace, which you could say maybe you could reach through sort of meditation, right? Or a meditative state where you've released expectation, you've released stress, you've released all that sort of anxiety and pressure, And then you just go out and you wind up doing better than you possibly could have. In the case of Michael Jordan scoring 1 million points, I can't tell you the number of times I've, done a lot of heavy lifting and going into the workout feeling like crap. Look, I'm sick. Oh, so my expectation level is 0. And I'll wind up doing some just bonkers stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Because I don't go in with the pressure of, you know what, this is like, it's a big game. I got to do well. Or this is a big presentation. I got to do well. It's almost like the whole, if I cursed you, just say the F it mentality. It's F it. And go in there, and what happens is if you're good, if you've done your homework most of the time, you'll knock it out of the park, whatever it is.
You know what that reminds me of too? This whole thing of being unconscious or like not trying so hard or not getting in your own way in your own head. It reminds me, spiritually speaking, think about it spiritually. Like think of the Buddha. It wasn't just when he went lifting, he didn't care and he was totally free. And then he had a great workout. It was like every moment of life, he was free and not worried about anything. And you know what I mean? He was in that zone like every moment. And therefore everything he did was unconscious and just you know what I mean? He was in the flow or something.
Sure.
Yeah. You are free. In the unconscious world, you are free.
Sure. Yeah.
No inner critic.
100%. I would watch Enter the Dragon. Right? There's the Bruce Lee film. In the beginning, he's actually a Shaolin monk for playing the character, and he's with I think real Shaolin monks, maybe those if they're real, whatever the characters are playing them. But he makes a great point about. I think it might be I believe it's in the film. It's not in the film. It's certainly in an interview where he talks about being like water. Right? Be formless. You can take on any shape, and you can also react to any situation. You can flow. You can crash. You can be smooth. You could be, like a storm. And again, like you're saying, being untethered and not having that necessary connection. Yeah, I mean, you'd be silly, or a person would be silly to think there is zero connection between, say, religion or spirituality or metaphysics, and then the real world, to think that those same principles don't carry over as someone who definitely has a limited wavelength from the neck up, for sure.
Right. So going from conscious to unconscious, Matt, you talked about it a little before that if when you start lifting weights, if you develop good habits and you get in a routine and the habit takes over, then you're sort of unconscious. Like James, in terms of like anxiety and the stuff you deal with, is there something, can something similar happen? Can you sort of develop good habits of mind or something, so then you just ride the flow forward without overthinking?
Yeah, well, we all have predominant subconscious programs that we learn from childhood. Usually from 0 to 6 are our most powerful memories are installed like an app. Okay, if you can kind of think of subconscious as like a hard drive full of apps. Okay, and we see the world all day long through these apps. So if your dad yelled at you, for stealing cookies or whatever when you were 5, and it left an imprint, you still see that today. You still see the world through that 5-year-old. So that can affect you. Negatively. So you could be overthinking. You could always be a little tense because you're still thinking about that time when you were sneaking those cookies and your dad caught you and yelled at you. So that's where the overthinking comes from. The conscious mind noise is from those installed programs from when you were a child. So, but with the work I do, not to plug, but I'm plugging anyway, we can change the perception. We can change your mind's perception of those programs. So instead of feeling that tenseness and anxiety from that stealing cookie scene, we can make that scene happy, and your dad's sharing a cookie with you and some milk. And then you see the world through that perception now, instead of the anxiety driving, overthinking perception of dad yelled at me. So we can absolutely change your mind's perception of events in the past. And it changes what we're really doing is changing your identity. It is changing your identity, because your identity now is you were born and then you had all these things happen to you, good and bad. And that's your identity today. But we can go in and actually change your mind's perception of those events, and boom, you have a new identity. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me of Tony Robbins when I think it was in the late 90s, I completely overdosed on Tony Robbins. Like, seriously, it was like, but in the long run, that was great, right? Because Tony Robbins is great. Like, I mean, I don't know what he's doing. I
didn't know he cussed until I had never watched him. I didn't know he cussed until I watched that Netflix Guru special he did. I'm like, holy crap, man.
I've never heard him curse.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude.
Oh, he's dropping everything. Was it like Bobby Knight style or what?
He's F this, F that. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he's not afraid. He talks like a regular person, and he uses it emphatically, which is fabulous.
But one of the techniques I learned from him back then when I overdosed on him in the late 90s was he would was it neuro-linguistic programming? He was talking about that. Yep. But also this thing where he said you could think of a memory that bothers you and then like change all the modalities, which means change the sound, change the color, change the thing. He'd be like, okay, so if it's your dad yelling at you for stealing cookies, you could change your dad's voice into like a Mickey Mouse voice. And why did you take those cookies? And then change his face to be all different color and the background. And like what you literally keep going over it in your mind. And he even said to go run the tape forward and then run it backwards and forward and back with all these different modalities. And after like a few minutes of doing that, you've completely scrambled that bad memory. It's not a bad memory anymore because you literally scrambled it. He says it's like a record, like a vinyl record where you scratch the record and that's it. You can't play the old record. It doesn't play anymore. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I did try it back then, but that's interesting.
Yeah,
I think people are going to probably after the people finish watching this, they're going to have to write over this whole episode, rewrite it to something good.
Traumatic memory.
Oh, that's great.
God, that was boring.
All right. So consciousness. All right. Well, look, we're 42 and a half minutes in. We only talked about one of our three topics. I think do you want to move on to another topic or I think we're good. No?
Yeah, that was great. That was good. Yeah. All
right. So let's do the last segment of what we're doing, which is we were each going to suggest a piece of media, like a book or a podcast or a movie or something cool that we watched or whatever. I'll go first. So I've been listening to this one podcast for a couple years now. It's called Darknet Diaries. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but it's called Darknet Diaries. The guy who makes it is really good. And it's all about like hackers and like privacy and security with computers and phones and everything. Really amazing. In fact, there's one episode where he interviews this guy who told the whole story how years ago, not that long ago, he went down to Puerto Rico because the Puerto Rico was having trouble with their lottery system. The lottery system was working fine, but they were losing money. So they brought in a couple people to figure out what's going on. And he ended up finding a couple things and he did all it's like he had to sneak into a building and anyway, they found what was happening. I won't ruin it, but it's just an amazing episode. In fact, I'll put a link to that specific episode down below because it was really fascinating. The show's Darknet Diaries. I love it.
That sounds interesting. I'll check that out.
Cool. You want to go, Matt?
No, let James go. I got to figure out the name of this thing.
Okay. Go ahead,
God,
James.
what did I put? Oh, I put in there the No Agenda podcast. I just started listening to that. That's pretty good. That's Adam Curry from MTV days. He's Mr. Podcast. He kind of has been credited with kind of inventing the podcast. And
he is the pod father, actually.
yeah, I remember
really is.
when his podcast first started. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. When did it start? Like 2008
4
or something like 4?
Yeah, that's when podcasting started, 2004.
Holy crap. But he's got a podcast today. It's actually with John C. Dvorak, the computer guy from like PC Mag, of all people. And it's really, I've only heard one episode so far, but it was really good. It was on the Ukrainian war and just all the media deception going on. It was fascinating. They had all these clips from like John McCain and Lindsey Graham were over there back in like 2016 going, yeah, we're with you. This is our war too. It's like, yeah, this has been going on a while. The media likes to kind of crop events and said, there's nothing that happened before this. Nothing at all. It's just right here. It starts right here. So yeah, it was really good, and production value is super high, of course, but they have a lot of historical clips. It was very interesting. So I recommend that one.
Cool. And I just figured out in my own mind why you listen to that show is because Adam Curry was recently on Jack Spirko's podcast.
Right. That's why I had heard about
Great
it. So,
episode.
yeah, I checked it out. Yeah, it's good.
That was really good.
It was.
Yeah, Adam Curry's a beast. He literally not invented podcasting. He pioneered podcasting, and now he's pioneering podcasting 2.0, which is integrated with crypto and Bitcoin and tipping and the next level. Because one of the things about podcasting, honestly, since 2004, the general way that it's done with RSS feeds and stuff has not changed. They haven't even added more. They've added a few more tags. But like literally for 18 years now, the technology has not changed, because one of the reasons why is because Apple is kind of a gatekeeper for podcasting, which it should not be. And so many people want to get away from that. But anyway, that's why Adam Curry is now reinventing podcasting again for Podcasting 2.0. He even has a show called Podcasting 2.0, which I haven't actually listened to yet. I should, but that guy's awesome, man.
Is that still a live show or is that one done? The 2.0.
Yeah, Podcasting 2.0, I don't know, but I believe it's just maybe once a week, and I'm sure I don't know if it's live.
I got to check that out.
Yeah.
I got to check that out.
Yeah, that one's serious because they have a whole protocol like that. Like I really should get into that. I'm going to listen to that. Are you ready, Matt?
Yeah. So I like to watch weird films. I think they're fun. Like usually, definitely by myself. It's just more because I don't think anybody likes to watch half these films. But have you guys ever seen Old Boy with Josh Brolin?
No.
It's what's the Samuel Jackson's in it. It's a nice. You ever see Bad Lieutenant? Remember that with Harvey Keitel? How it's just it's just afterwards you feel like you need to shower or like floss your brain to clean it out. It's like
that's most Keitel. Yeah. That's most Harvey Keitel movies.
Yeah, that's how this movie kind of is. It's fantastic. It's really whacked, and it's definitely check it out. I've watched it years ago. But I was trying to think of what film I could recommend. I can recommend a film per week that's just off the wall, weird stuff that's usually not on the main radar. That's really kind of neat. And if that movie doesn't quite float your boat, check out Joaquin Phoenix in a film called "You're Never Really Here," which if you guys haven't seen that, it's he's a fabulous actor. The guy who played the Joker. You're never really here.
Was that during his weird period of time where he thought he was like a rapper with a beard?
No, this is relatively probably within the last 5 years or so. It was okay. It's another whacked film. You just watch it again. These aren't like high action packed films. They're not like this is stuff that is interesting to think about. And so those are my two recommendations.
What's his name again?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh yeah,
or Josh Brolin. Those are the other two. That's the other guy. Old Boy.
Yeah. I think
that's actually a remake. There's another one. It was original, I think, from years ago that I didn't realize until after seeing the first one, doing a little research. But that's a very kind of disturbing film. At the end, you realize some stuff's really effed up. You're like, holy jeez, I need to take a bath and maybe some like pure alcohol to cleanse myself.
You need the cleaner.
James, James, you mentioned Joaquin Phoenix with the beard and being all weird.
Yeah.
Like when I first saw that, I didn't know if it was real or not, but it ended up that guy literally trolled the whole world for like, what was it, like a year and a half or 2 years? He stayed in character.
A little while.
Just as a troll.
Yeah.
I mean, like a real world genius actor, right?
Yeah. I remember him going on talk shows. I don't know which one. Maybe it was David Letterman or whatever.
Yeah, Letterman is great.
He was just aloof. He was just out to lunch. It was hilarious, actually.
So
and it's
good.
like he's really. I mean, either he's really good or he's really bad. You didn't know which one it was.
Yeah, but I thought that too. But it definitely was a troll because he came out of it. Because he put out a movie. What he did is he went into his character for like a year and a half or 2 years. They followed him around with cameras, and they ended up making a documentary film as him as that guy. And as soon as they put it out, as soon as they released the film, he reverted back to his normal self.
Yeah, I thought that was the goal. Was it any good? Yeah. Did you see it?
I didn't see it actually.
Okay,
that's another one.
Well, maybe it didn't work then. Nobody
Joker,
saw it.
Joker was great. Yeah.
Well, Joker, right. I wanted to go jump off a cliff after watching that, but anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know in the comments below. What is a piece of media that you suggest? And, I guess you could promote yourself if you're a creator, but whatever, promote yourself then. Who cares? or give us something that we should watch or a movie we should watch or podcast we should listen to. I have more podcasts, but I'm going to wait till I'm going to do one per week, right? Any last words? We didn't get into, we were supposed to talk about ancient civilizations. I was going to bring up this. Little teaser for you. Great book. And then we were going to talk about ESG, which we'll have to wait and talk about that later. Anything else, guys, before we wrap it and pack it?
No, we're good.
No,
all right,
we're good.
That's it. Later. Say goodbye.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. We really appreciate you. Definitely comment and like and subscribe and all that stuff. It really means a lot, so thank you. And that's it. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.